I work nights at Harbour District Station, where the hallways smell like old coffee and wet wool. At 2357, the building is a ribcage of cinderblock and humming exit signs. We call the glass in interrogation be a one-way mirror, but that's a bedtime story for cops. Glass keeps what you give it. Case 178 sits in an orange evidence tote at my feet. The tag says, "Do not transfer without supervisor." I'm the supervisor tonight. No one else wanted this box. They don't like how the room cools when it comes out. The first time I saw this mirror, I was 7 and too short for the rail. A detective lifted me under the arms, my socks slipped on the varnish. On the other side, 10 men stood shoulder to shoulder, number cards on their chests, like paper shields. The room smelled like pencil shavings and winter. Someone's breath haloed the pain, my breath. His memory edits light. "Take your time," the detective said, his voice climbing through the tin speaker. My mother's hand shook in mine, her face fixed because they told her to be. Later, she would break. Not then. Number 5 turned his head. And I saw it not fangs, not a movie monster. Just a small private smirk men wear when they think they can walk out of locked rooms. He looked straight at the glass, as if the mirror was a keyhole and he still had the key on a string. "Do you recognize anyone?" "Yes," I pointed. I said the number twice so the speaker wouldn't blame static. Quick thing if you like. Stories from the dark side of real places, subscribe to this channel. It helps keep these nights lit. I unseal case 178. Plastic squeal, paper sigh. Inside, a Polaroid of white roller skates. Laces coiled like sleeping worms. A crumpled receipt, speckled with old rain. A can of oil with a snapped nozzle. A hardware store hammer, dull with time. A sweatshirt bagged as Exhibit 178A. I don't touch the bag. I don't need to. The mirror is already paying attention. Buildings have voices. The HVAC sings a low hymn. Camera 12 ticks in the ductwork. I set the Polaroid down and it slides an inch toward the glass, as if pulled by a tide. The viewing room is empty. It should be empty. Still, I feel the faintest candle flame of movement on the other side. You know the worst thing about mirrors? They make distance look like safety. Case 178 is closed, I say for the microphone log. Conviction entered. Evidence retained per statute. That's the official line. The room has its own statute. Here, time loops. I was supposed to clock out at 6 o'clock. The day clerk called in sick. The lieutenant slid the tote toward me like a plate that smelled wrong. Inventory it, then roll it to records. His eyes flicked to the mirror and away. So I inventory, careful and slow. My handwriting doesn't shake. The box exhales dust that tastes like library paste. I list the skates, receipt, oil, hammer, 178A. I do not list the other thing. Feeling you get near waves, something is returning, and it doesn't care if you're ready. Tap. One precise knock on the glass. Like a coin on a countertop, my throat goes dry the way it did when I was 7. When one voice said, "Take your time," and another said, "Shut up, or else." There's no one in the lineup room. I would have keyed them in, but the speaker crackles and a hiss rides in, the sound of winter, on tape. Beneath it, a word curls out of the drainpipe of the past. 5, it whispers. Not a voice, just a number wearing a face. I step close, up near. The mirror loses its authority. You can see age in its scratches, a crescent where someone's ring bit the surface. My reflection looks like someone who might be believed. That's another trick I learned. Dress like a verdict, speak like a hallway. He used to dress like a neighbor. He used to speak like directions you could trust. Camera 12 clicks. The monitor jitters, a horizontal tear rolling like heat over asphalt. For a heartbeat, the reflected room and the room I'm in misalign. As if the mirror is a door that was never sealed and now someone is pushing it. From the far side, case 178, I say to the glass, to the child I was, to the number that learned, our names, do you recognize anyone? The speaker doesn't answer. The glass does. It fogs in a shape the size of a man's breath and the fog holds where no one stands at all. On the other side, Something smiles where nothing should be. The fog on the mirror thins, but doesn't vanish. It clings like a thumbprint you see only when you tilt the glass. I back away, palms open, as if I'm feeding something. The speaker goes quiet. Case 178 waits on the table, its corner chewing the laminate. I should wheel it to records instead. I slide the Polaroid closer. White roller skates, laces, scribbled across plastic, one-wheel crescent bitten. That chip is why I ran crooked that day. I don't say that day much. The ducts sigh, the locker hums. Sun on a narrow street. Warm. Tar bleeding through chalk. A coin in my fist made me think I was heavy enough to be safe. The bearings sang, bright and cold. A red car, hood up. A man wiping his hands. Do you know, I began. He answered with motion. Evil loves shortcuts. The trunk was already open. My body learned the verb to fold. The lid fell. The world turned brake light red. A can rolled against my Noil, sharp and clean. A hammer clunked between carpet ribs. I think of that hammer more than any face. I struck the lid. Metal shouted like someone yelling underwater. He told me to be quiet, using a sentence that lived under my skin for years. I untied my skates. The laces, a riddle my hands outran. Bare feet found trunk grit. If he opened it, I would run. That was the plan. If, then. Back in interrogation B, the oil can in the tote is the same make, label faded. I catalog it. Pen scratches. Camera 12 ticks. The mirror does a thing it should not leans. Of course, it doesn't. That's the lie my eyes tell, so my mind won't name it. Breath flowers on blank glass, a crescent where no one stands. Hospitals smell like orange peel and snow. They kept my mother outside until she could be a mask. We colored and stayed in the lines. 3 days later, the lineup, 10 men. Numbers pinned like butterflies. My finger on the pane left a child's print. Take your time, the detective said. Time was a hallway. I walked barefoot. Number 5 turned and smiled with barely any teeth. The smile said, keys are for people who don't deserve doors. The speaker crackles now, as if someone taps the wire. A tiny syllable rides the hiss. It could be a number. I look at my inventory sheet. Each line looks the same. 178, 178, 178. I close the tote. The lid fits. Still the box exhales pressure. The weight you feel on a ferry when the shore leaves and the water asks, are you willing to float? Records. I say. I kick the carts, brake and steer into the corridor. The wheels find every crack. At this hour, the posters stare. Missing, with faces that do not judge. Do not prop open evidence doors is underlined 3 times, as if arguing with a ghost. Halfway to the elevator, the hallway lengthens, the fluorescent trick that adds 10 feet. The cart feels heavier, like the tote is drinking gravity. The elevator arrives with a cough. I press B. The car in my head never stops at the lobby. It idles behind every door. The basement is colder. The records door has a slit window like a mailbox. Beyond it, shelves in ranked aisles, boxes like a silent choir. I'm lifting my badge when the slit darkens and 10 pale shapes drift across in even spacing. Shoulders aligned, a row of men turning to face me in perfect unison. I know. There's no space beyond that slit for any lineup. Still, the shapes hold. And one in the middle cocks his head and gives that small private smirk you recognize once you've seen Ither. One men wear when they think the world is an empty glass and they are the breath. 5, I say, because names are for neighbors and numbers are for monsters. The slit clears, shelves, cardboard, dust. Ordinary again. The tote is ordinary too. The only things that aren't are me. And the mirror, and the station that keeps too many nights in its bones. I badge in. Records exhales its cold blessing. I roll the cart inside. Lights wake one by one, a wave toward a shore I can't see. The shelves accept case 178, like a hand taking a hotter hand. The lid settles. Somewhere upstairs a door closes. The sound takes its time coming down. Footsteps through concrete throat. It arrives, soft, like a decision already made. I stand with my hand on the tote until the quiet is complete and learn. The second rule of case 178. The mirror is not the only thing here that remembers how to breathe. Records closes behind me with the soft thud of a book that knows how it ends. The hallway back to the elevator looked longer than it did 5 minutes ago. That's the first rule of Harbor District after midnight. Distances grow, opinions. You think you can cross them in 10 steps, and the building says, try 15. Fluorescence. Blink awake in a staggered wave, 1, 2, 3, like someone counting off a firing squad. I wait for the fourth bulb. It doesn't come. A dark pane of ceiling stares back. The same color as the lineup room when the men filed in, and I could hear numbers before I saw faces. I push the cart anyway. The wheels complain. The tote is gone. Logged, done, yet the cart has kept its weight like a phantom limb. Halfway to the elevator, the PA cracks alive with a throat clear of white noise. Interrogation B, dispatch says, voice flattened by the old speaker. Motion, copy, I say, because that is what men who survived say. We learn the survival grammar, the way you tack a yes onto fear. On my way, the elevator takes its time. I stare at my reflection in the brushed metal, and it stares back like a witness, trying to remember exactly when the shouting started. When the doors open, the fourth bulb upstairs chooses that moment to wake. The light arrives like advice, too late to help. Interrogation B has 2 doors. One for the audience, one for the stage. I take the audience door. The viewing room air has the sour sweetness of old coffee and breath. The one-way mirror doesn't fog this time. It shines a cold, clear patience. No one should be inside. The motion sensor is notorious for false alarms. A moth, a swing of AC. Still, the chair on the far side is not where we left it. It's angled slightly toward the glass. If you've ever seen someone edge their chair closer to a secret, you know the posture. If you haven't, trust me, furniture can listen. I click the mic button. Interrogation be clear. The speaker replies with the soft shuffle of empty room. Then a sound that doesn't belong to air. At all small, precise, rubber-kissing polished floor. The noise roller skates make when a wheel finds a crack and arrests the whole body. It comes once, twice, stops right where your heart would be if you were made of hallway. I key in, step onto the stage. The ammonia gloss of the tile shows scuffs we all pretend not to notice. Chair, table, blank wall, blank a mirror. I stand where a suspect would. I'd watch my body in the glass and try not to judge the way it braces, as if expecting hands to grow from the wall. Motion noted, I say for the camera, because procedural sentences are charms you tie around your neck. No subject present. The mirror leans again, not physically, but with attention. If you've worked in a station long enough, you know the difference. Some rooms absorb, some reflect. This one likes to return things altered, like a rumor. Rule 2, I say softly. A habit of talking to the building when no one else is around. The mirror remembers even if the case is closed. The mic light winks red. Somewhere, a tape will keep this sentence. And someone will hear it and decide whether I'm poetic or unsound. When I turn to go, the chair taps the floor by the smallest fraction, as though a seated man uncrossed his legs. I don't look back. A person can spend a life feeding furniture their fear. In the corridor, the air is cooler. A river through a stone throat. My phone vibrates. A system alert that isn't dramatic. Enough to earn the PA camera. 12 signal drop restored. Then again. Drop, restore. The little graph of heartbeat goes flat and sprints, flat and sprints. The way mine used to in hospital nights when I pretended to sleep. Camera 12 watches the lineup hallway. That's why we never, ever ignore that alert. I walk that direction, my shoes reporting me to the floor. The walls here, where framed photos of softball teams and charity runs, smiling proof that cops are people in sunlight. The glass in those frames shows my reflection more kindly than the interrogation mirror does. The glass makes room. At the turn. The lineup hallway lies empty. A long run of closed doors, each stenciled with a number that means nothing until it means everything. A strip of tape marks where the men stand, shoulder to shoulder. Someone had peeled it up once, a civilian cleaning crew maybe. We put it back. Certain lines you keep, even if they're only superstition. 5, I say, before I can help myself and immediately hate that I've granted the number a body. If you listen for long enough, buildings tell jokes. This one prefers a single tap blooms from the first door on the left, the one with the little rectangular viewer that rarely sees service now that we've gone digital. It's the exact sound of knuckles on holocore, friendly, patient. I step closer. On the other side is a closet full of folding chairs and a bucket with a wrung-out string mop that remembers bad nights. I know this because I've opened it 100 times. The viewer slot is dark. The darkness looks thick, as if anything pushed into it would come back with night glass on its skin. Maintenance. I call EU in there. Silence answers with its polite grin. I open the door. The smell is bleach, dust, and stage fright. Chairs against the wall, mop in the corner, nothing else. Except, on the floor, somebody has dragged the mop's wet head across the tile in a long, wavering curve that ends exactly at the strip of lineup tape outside. A child's approximation of a road, 2 small dots of grey water at the end like wheels. It would be simple to say, a bucket tipped, water sloshed, gravity doodled. I want simple, I choose it. I dry the marks with a blue roll of paper towel until the tile squeaks. When I step back into the hallway, camera 12 ticks in the ceiling, tick 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 like a stopwatch held by someone with all the time in the world. The monitor at the far end hiccups, image bending. For a half breath, the lens sees 10 figures in the taped space. Shoulders aligned, faces smeared by the compression error, but one in the dead center at a tilt you could pick out of a crowd of 1,000. A smirk, reduced to pixels, is still a smirk. I blink, and the hallway is empty. The tape is only tape again. The monitor returns to its quiet snow. Rule 3. I tell the air. Because speaking the rules is like laying breadcrumbs. When the station laughs at night, it's not at you. It's with the thing that remembers what you pointed at. I start back toward interrogation B to file the motion report. My phone buzzes with the last alert I expect. Evidence sign-out. Sent E78. Menos I user. Unknown time. 23:57. 23:57 was when I first opened the tote. I'm the supervisor. No one else is badged for that item. The system thinks a ghost signed out the sweatshirt while I was standing in the same room telling a mirror the case was closed. I walk faster than a man should walk in his own building. Past the photos that show sunlight, past the doors that way. Breath. Until the viewing room door meets my hand and gives. On the table in interrogation B, where no one left it, lies a single Polaroid I did not bring back from records. White roller skates, centered in the square. Laces neat, wheels aligned, and at the bottom edge a thumbprint haze pressed into the gloss, the exact size of the breath that fogged this glass when there was no one on the other side at all. The Polaroid lies where it shouldn't. Dead center on the table in interrogation B, squared to the glass as if measured. White roller skates, laces obedient, wheels aligned. A faint thumbprint haze silvering the bottom edge. I didn't bring it back from records. The system says 178A was signed out at 23:57 by no one at all. I pick up the photo with 2 fingers on the corners. Static stings my skin. For a breath, the emulsion flashes a bruise of color, like something beneath the surface turned its head. The speaker above the glass inhales, just air through a coil, just physics, and still my stomach learns to expect words. As a child, I learned to fear verbs more than nouns. Open, close, point, run. I slide the Polaroid into a fresh evidence sleeve. Chain of custody is a necklace you either wear or hang yourself with. My pen hovers over the log. USER_. Time 012. I print my name and, because I have to live with myself in daylight, add a note, recovered in B. Initial sign-out flagged as system error. Camera 12 gives a hiccup through the ceiling. A horizontal tear rolls down the viewing monitor like heat over asphalt. For exactly 1 second, the hallway it watches isn't tonight's hallway. It's brighter, older grainy tube glown. 10 figures stand shoulder to shoulder on the tape line. Heads tilted the way, bad teeth tilt under a weak bulb. Number cards on string. In the dead center, the posture, I know the way, I know my own handwriting. A smirk reads as a smirk even when 1,000 pixels forget the rest of the face. The image snaps back. Empty corridor, modern snow. My breath fogs the glass and leaves no print. The mirror is colder than I am. I back out to the desk and wake the chain of custody terminal. The RMS banner blinks in a civic shade of blue. I query, item 178A. Last movement. The result is an error soup that would be funny any hour, but this one. HTTP 404, NOT, found. The system coughed up the same code you get when a street dead ends on the internet. Room 404 doesn't exist in this building. We skip from 403 to 405 floor plan, fire code, simple. I know because I've walked every hallway at hours when even the clock snap, but the screen insists. Location, 404, rule 4. I say, because the station likes you better if you narrate. If the building shows you a room it doesn't have, don't go looking for it. The printer on the credenza wakes with the sleepy rattle of paper teeth. No job queued. It prints anyway, thin thermal strip unspooling, like a receipt for a purchase. I don't remember making .sign dash out. 170 ATA user, time, 004 signature. 5. I hold the strip up. The ink smells like hot dust. Time 004. The numbers tick in my head into something else. 404. It's a game the station plays. Taking pieces of you and arranging them into a door. Enough, I tell the room. The room likes confidence the way stray dogs like palms down. I gather the Polaroid, the strip, the incident report, and step into the corridor. The hallway feels longer than it should. Harbor District's opinionated geometry again. But the distance breaks if you walk like you mean it. At the bend, toward evidence control, the fluorescents hesitate, decide, and then the last fixture ahead refuses to wake. Dark water sits under the ceiling. My bones remember brake-light red, trunk grit in my teeth. The way a hammer tastes like a coin when fear climbs through your mouth. I keep walking. The station respects people who can't be bluffed by shadows it made. Evidence control is lit. And empty. A stage between scenes. The metal desk owns a terminal with a frosted privacy screen. I sign in. The audit log shuffles up like a deck of tired cards. There it is again, 2357, 178A, user, unknown location, 404. Chain broken, then healed without our hands. If any of this happened in daylight, I'd call IT and make coffee while they blamed the network. At this hour, I am IT coffee, and blame. Open the lockers. Rows of sealed bags rest behind wire like old birds behind clean cages. I don't expect to find the sweatshirt, but there it is anyway, bagged and tagged. The corner creased, where a clerk once pressed too hard. Exhibit 178A. Someone has placed it on the high shelf, too high for me to reach without the rolling ladder. Except the ladder is across the room because whoever stocked this wants me to climb. I don't climb. I drag the desk chair instead. It complains the way chairs complain when you forget their furniture and not accomplices. Standing on it, I look down into the wire cubes and see my reflection in the plastic bag. A face tired enough to tell the truth. The faintest breath of cold comes through the locker vents. The bag skin wrinkles as if something inside just sighed. My hand won't push through the gate. I hate that, the way my body votes against my orders. So I do the thing we do when we can't go forward. I talk. This isn't yours, I tell. The shelf, the bag, the mirror that lives without a window here, too. You don't get to sign it out. You don't get to sign me out. The HVAC hum thickens, bass you feel in your ribs. Camera 12 ticks in the duct. Drop/restore, drop, restore. Somewhere, the old PA inhales. A sound rolls through the building, rubber kissing polished floor. The noise a skate makes when a wheel finds a crack and arrests a life. It draws closer, in soft, measured beats 1 to 3 until it rests on the far side of the evidence control door. I step down. The chair legs thump too loud. My fingers hover over the knob. The peephole shows only corridor emptiness and light pooling on the tape where lineups line up. Then a pale shape skims the edge of that pooler, single white roller skate without a foot in it, sliding as if tugged by a careful, patient hand. The skate stops against the jamb with a polite knock. I open the door, because not opening it is worse. The skate is real. Its leather is worn where a small ankle once bruised its soft. One wheel is chipped a crescent bite out of daylight. It smells faintly of oil. Inventory, I say, stupid and necessary, and hold out the barcode wand, like. Across the wand beeps against nothing. The skate has no tag because it isn't supposed to exist. Behind me, the terminal chimes. On the screen, a new entry types itself, with the courtesy of a secretary who never blinks. Check-in. 178A, user, supervisor, my name, location, interrogation, B-time, 016, I didn't move it. The sweatshirt is still on the high shelf, sighing, in plastic. But the system insists it's back in the room with the mirror. Rule 5 writes itself in my head as I pick up the skate and feel the cold of it, learn my fingerprints. When the building tells you where your past is, believe it. Don't go alone. The corridors lengthens again, eager. Interrogation bewaits with its patient glass. Camera 12 ticks, keeping a time that is not the clock's. I carry the small, impossible skate toward the room that already says I've arrived. Interrogation bewaits like a held breath. The small skate is cold in my hand, its leather gone soft. Where a child's ankle once learned the shape of fear, camera 12 ticks above me, keeping a time the clocks don't admit to. The hallway pushes back, lengthening its spine as if to make me earn the door. I keep walking. The station rewards momentum the way deep water rewards stillness poorly. Inside B glass is clean, no fog, no prints, only that polished patience that makes you tell the truth to your own face. On the metal table sits a sealed bag that should be upstairs, Exhibit 178, creased at the corner, the way I remember. The inventory terminal on the side credenza has already filled out my part in a neat municipal font. Check-in, 178A. User, supervisor, my name, location, interrogation B, time, 016, I didn't bring it here. The system believes I did. That's how hauntings work in buildings like this. Not chains and moans, but paperwork that rearranges itself until you agree with it. I set the skate down. Its wheel taps the tabletop. A small rubber kiss that lands right in the middle of my chest. The bag for 170 ATA shivers, plastic crackling as if it has a second. Quieter climate. I've learned to talk to the room the way you talk to a dog with an old scar. Calm voice, palms visible. I'm logging an anomaly, I say for the mic. Evidence. Movement without authorized handler. Mirror present. The thermal printer behind me rattles awake without a print command. A narrow strip unspools and curls like a shy tongue. Location update. 178A. Room 404. We don't have a room. 404. We skip from 403 to 405. The blueprint in my head swears at the station offers a different map, printed on heat and air. Rule 6. I murmur. More for the station than for the record. If the building gives you a door you know doesn't exist, it's still open somewhere. The mirror leans. I know how that sounds. Glass doesn't move. Attention does. The attention on the far side weights the panogram heavier. The way a person's gaze adds a degree to a room's temperature. The old speaker exhales coil-scented air. Somewhere in the ventilation, camera 12 drops and restores, drops and restores, Morse code only, fear reads fluently. I pull the Polaroid from my pocket, the one that moved itself here earlier. The one I sleeved to keep my sanity from touching it raw. White roller skates, neat laces, a thumbprint haze on the gloss. I hold it up to the mirror. The child's breath that smudged that original photo wasn't mine. I was too careful to fog glass again for a long time. Still, the mirror gifts me a faint crescent of cloud, now. Right where a mouth would be if a mouth leaned close from the other side. Do you recognize anyone? I ask. Surprise at my own voice, sounding like a detective's gentle rehearsal. The words are older than my throat. They live in the room. The speaker answers with a harmless hiss. Underneath, a number dials itself up from the drain pipe of memory and sits on the surface between us. 5, says not a voice, but a weight. Face the glass. No, I tell it. He's caged. The bag twitches. I don't make it dramatic by jumping. I just set the Polaroid down so the table has one anchor that came from my side. A static spark cracks against my finger. The room smells briefly like winter socks on a radiator. The seal, line on the bag, peels itself backward a quarter inch, as if bored of being perfect. The sweatshirt's cuff shows through, rough knit, a fleck of red paint like a bloodless scab. It's ordinary as evidence gets, and still the little hairs on my arms lift their heads. I take a step closer and meet myself in the glass, except my reflection is off by the smallest measure, like a poorly synced voice on a TV in a bar. My mouth moves a half-beat late. My eyes arrive too early. Behind my reflected shoulder, a line the height of shoulders ghost marks the wall, an echo of tape. 10 soft blurs align on it. Heads tilting with that careful contempt you learn to spot in men who have too many practice runs at lying. The room is empty. The mirror presents an edit. Rule 7, I say, because rules are breadcrumbs and I may need to find this path backward later. Don't ask questions, you can't bear the honest version of a knock. Not on the door, on the glass. A nickel. Knock, cashier polite. I lay my palm flat to the pane. It's cold enough that skin tries to stick. For a breath, I feel pressure from the other side, the equal and opposite of me as if another palm rested there. Bigger by a knuckle. The presses match, then slide, as if we're lining up fingerprints for someone who doesn't carry a badge. 5, that curling weight insists again. Deeper now, like the word moved into the building's foundation and learned to speak via concrete. I look down. The Polaroid is no longer centered in the square it made, has nudged itself toward the glass. The small skate on the table tilts so the chipped wheel points straight at my chest. And then God help my watch, its laces pull themselves one tight obedient inch. As if hands I can't see remembered the knot. I force a laugh that fools no one. You're a room with a good memory. I tell B, but I am not 7. The station answers on its own frequency. In the line-up hallway outside, I hear a subtle zipper of tape peeling up and laying down, peeling up and laying down. The geometry of Harbor District shifts delicately, like a sleeping animal resettling its ribs. The doorknob to be cools in my hand. On the other side of the mirror, where there should be nothing but my edited reflection, a number stencils itself on glass in breath, 404. The digits hang there a moment, then smudge, then fade. Behind me, the thermal strip chatters out a second line. Access granted 404 interrogation B, you don't exist. I tell the number. It fogs weakly again, and writes back in the universal language of ghosts. Come. The smart move would be to call the lieutenant, to log the anomaly, and go sit under the bright, honest light of the break room, with a paper cup of coffee, until the building stops acting like a magician who hates his audience. The smarter move would be to leave, but clever miserliness runs this place at midnight. It will keep asking until you pay. I take the edge of the evidence bag between 2 knuckles and squeeze it shut again. The seal whispers. The sweatshirt's cuff retreats like a patient animal into its plastic cave. I pocket the printed strips. I tuck the sleeved Polaroid under my arm and take the skate in my hand. Tools matter. So do relics. Then I do the thing you don't tell rookies about, because it reads like a joke you can only explain to people with the same scar. I face my own face in the one-way mirror. I place my palm on the cold, and I step forward. The glass does not swing or vanish. It deepens, it agrees to be more than surface. My reflection falls a breath out of sync again, and the room behind my reflected shoulder brightens by one impossible bulb. The fourth light we never fix because it never quite breaks. The seam appears, not in the glass, but in the idea of the glass, a hairline, a thought. On the other side, 10 men turn their heads with the same small private smirk, and in the center, something I can't name, points at me with a number card instead of a finger. Recognize someone, the building whispers in the voice of old speaker wire. Who? I ask, and hate myself for needing the answer. You, the room says without malice. Number 5. You, the room said, number 5. The words didn't come through the speaker so much as through the wall itself, as if the city had decided to try a voice on and liked how it fit. My reflection lagged a half beat behind me, then caught up, then lagged again. The fourth light, the one we never fix because it never quite breaks, bloomed in the mirror world, like a slow bruise of daylight. Rule 8. I told the building because it listens better when you narrate. If a room tries to hand you a name, put your own down in ink. I took the pen from the incident clipboard and wrote my full name in block capitals on the back of the thermal strip. Not a signature, a staking. The paper was warm with the machine's small heart. I slid the strip into my breast pocket over the real heart, talisman to keep the two in order. The seam held in the idea of the glasser. Hairline thought you could pry with a steady mind. I placed the small roller skate at the base of the pane, heel against the trim, toe toward me, a wedge a child might trust. Rule 9, I said, and my voice came out level. Always leave something of your own between here and there. I pressed my palm to the mirror. Cold ate my skin, then learned it. The surface deepened again. Not a door, not a window, something worse, an agreement. The station has those / you learn when to sign. I stepped, and the room stepped me back, overlapping into B and its shadow, perfectly misaligned. The air on the other side tasted like nickel and chalk, and that hospital orange that never comes from oranges. Camera 12 ticked in the duct like a metronome someone set to a heartbeat. The tape line that marks the lineup glowed faint as old bone. On it, 10 figures stood in the reflex more than in the room, shoulders even, heads tilting in that careful way. In the center, a posture I knew the way. I knew the way of my own name when someone else tries to carry it. Take your time, a detective's voice said, years late, and right on cue. The other voice, the trunk's voice, sauntered in underneath, shut up or else. Together, they made a rope. No, I said, because it matters which memories you answer. The sweatshirt bag rustled on the table behind us, and I didn't look because sometimes the most courageous thing is to starve a magic trick. I held the sleeved Polaroid up like a badge. In the square, the white skates sat obedient, laces neat. Those laces had always looked like scribble. Now, in this light, they arranged themselves into a tidy figure 404. The chipped wheel gleamed where it bit daylight once and took a small piece. Where is it? I asked the picture. Because objects love being asked what they already are. The air ahead of me cooled. A door-shaped absence appeared along the far wall, where the mirror said there was only concrete. Room 404, in breath-scripted digits, not painted, not real, real enough. The knob was the color of decisions. I picked up the skate wedge and slid it against that new trim instead. The wheel clicked on, obedient, living sound. Stay, I told it, like a handler telling a dog that's smarter than pride. I took the thermal strips from my pocket and tore them into narrow flags, tucking one under the knob, one under the jam, one into the cuff of 178A's bag, the way sailors tuck notes into bottles. If I disappeared, the station could not pretend I'd never been. The knob was colder than the mirror. The seam took my hand, then took the rest. The door opened inward onto a room that stole a beat from the station before giving it back slower. It looked almost like a normal interview space that had been taught to forget its furniture. Table gone. Chairs like shadows where chairs should be. A wire cage in the corner, holding nothing but the echo of a folded sweatshirt. The floor had a pale tape line arranged in a figure 8 where our hallway's straight strip should be. It wanted me to walk it until I taught myself to be quiet. Supervisor. Came the PA voice, crisp and official. A woman from dispatch who pronounced calm like a rank. Report to room 404. There is no room 404, we say in daylight. There is one now, the radio said in midnight. I copy, I said. Because sometimes obedience steals power back. Inside. The temperature dropped, that hospital 1 degree. That tells you a body has left, or something else has arrived. Camera 12's tick retreated into ductwork deeper than our ducts go. On the opposite wall, a one-way mirror faced Metha, cousin of the pane I'd just crossed. In it, I saw interrogation B as it is on maps, and in interrogation B, I saw me facing. This glass, 2 of me, both a half-beat wrong. Between us, the breath digit 5 curled faintly and faded. I was 7, I told the mirror, not 5. The mirror tried that on and didn't like the fit. The lineup on the tape line stirred. The center figure, the posture raised his number card and turned it toward me. My number, not a 5, but the last digit of my badge. Everyone in Harbour has that digit in their head without trying. We tease each other with it when the day is friendly. He smiled with it. It is a terrible thing to see your own ordinary mocked by the shape that tried to end you. This is not court, I said out loud, for myself. For the camera that might not exist here, for the girl whose breath left a crescent on the first mirror in a different decade. And you don't get to pick me from a shelf. The door at my backside a fraction. I felt the skate kiss the jam as if a small hand steadied itself there. The thermal strip under the knob curled with a dry rasp. My name, in block capitals, warmed under my shirt. The far mirror clouded, just that chick height. Words drew themselves in slow strokes. Do not turn off camera 12. A rule, I understood with my bones. Don't let the building choose where the dark goes. Copy, I said. I looked for a switch that didn't exist and flipped it the way we do when the thing we're operating is belief. The tick in the duct steadied. The line of 10 altered their tilt by 1 degree toward me, not aggressive, not friendly, simply acknowledging a participant. Recognition test, the old detective's voice said from everywhere. Point if you recognize anyone. I could point at the posture. I could point at the smirk. I could spend another decade feeding that act. Or I could point at the door and name it. I raised my hand. All 10 heads waited. I recognize this, I said, and touched the 404 digits written in faint breath on the second mirror. An empty that pretends to be a room. A number that tries to be a name. A trick that wants a witness to give it a face. The line wavered, shoulders dipping the way a crowd dips when a wind moves through it. The central figure flipped his card once bored child, showing he can keep the coin no matter how you ask. Something slid across the floor near my ankle. Not a hand, a length of tape. The station had peeled up part of its figure 8 and fed it toward me like a leash. If I took it, I understood, I would be walked to where the door wanted me. Rule 10, I whispered, and felt the words find their own shape. If the building offers you a leash, it's because it doesn't want you to hold the door. I let the tape touch my shoe, and didn't take it. I kept my palm pressed to the seam where door meets wall. Through it, faint as papers breathing, the thermal flags fluttered with the HVAC proof of a world with printers and sunrises. The small skate held the jam like a promise. Behind the second mirror, my other reflection lifted its hand and aimed at me, as if I were the centerman in a lineup that would never end. Take your time, the voice said again, and this time, I heard the hunger tucked neatly into courtesy. I will, I said, and didn't point. The room didn't like that. The lights dimmed by the fraction a predator's patience dims. On the PA, dispatch cleared her throat as if she could see where I stood. Supervisor, she said, brisk, almost relieved. Be advised, Lieutenant, en route to R2404. Her voice wavered on the last 4, as though the word had teeth. The door at my back tightened in its frame, a building clenching. The skate's wheel chirped once in protest, and the seam tried to seal. I pressed harder with my palm and felt the faintest pushback from the other side. A hand larger by a knuckle, lining up with mine. The hand through the seam matched mine, larger by a knuckle, heedless. Pressure met pressure, polite as a handshake and just as dangerous. The door tried to settle into its frame around our joined palms. The way a mouth settles around a bit until the horse forgets it ever had a different idea. Supervisor, dispatch said over the PA. Voice crisp with daylight that didn't belong. Here, Lieutenant is 2 minutes out. Hold position in 40. We don't have a room 404, I wanted to remind her. The station does tonight. The breath digits hung faintly on the mirrored glass across from me, as if written in frost, 404. Under it, the rule I'd read a minute earlier reappeared in slow strokes. Do not turn off camera 12. Copy, I said, and kept my palm against the seam. Because obedience can be a crowbar, the tape leash at my feet tugged once. Not hard, the way you test a dog for slack. I didn't give it any. The small skate holding the jam chirped its chipped wheel as the building breathed. Behind me, behind the ordinary, mapped interrogation be the bag with 178A side in plastic. Patient as a folded animal, the other hand pressed backer, careful escalation, a man learning a door. My fingers remembered a trunk lid, a sentence that fit around a throat like a ring. I talked so my body would listen. Rule 11, I said, low, for the station. When a place tries to give your hands a memory that isn't yours, teach it a new one. I took the pen from my pocket, the one I'd used to write my name on the thermal strip, and inked a line across my palm, a short black horizon. I pressed that horizon into the seam until the ink printed faintly on whatever palm, mirrored mine, marked, named, not traded. A hummingbird glitch tremored through the duct camera, 12 drop, restore. Drop restored then steadied, as if pleased. The lineup on the tape line beyond the second mirror tipped their heads 1 degree, acknowledgement without consent. The center posture, the smirk posture, the coin flip hand stilted his number card toward me. For a blink, the digit was my badge again. The building wanted me to spend my ordinary and call it proof. From the corridor outside mapped interrogation became footsteps with good shoes in them. Measured heel over toe, a man who writes his reports before the coffee cools. The lieutenant's silhouette cleaved the viewing room glass behind me. I saw him only as a pale reflection in the mirror I faced. A figure framed by fluorescence, hat tucked underarm, jaw hinged for orders. Supervisor, he called, voice flattened by old speaker. Coyle, where exactly are you? Interrogation B, I said to the mirror. And also not silence, came back holding a question by its teeth. On the PA, dispatch repeated. Be advised, do not power cycle 12. I'd never loved her more. The lieutenant moved closer. Reflection sharpening in the glass across from me, cufflinks tie in honest knots. The habitual squint of men who read too many lies at close range. He reached up toward a toggle on the viewing room wall. The one rookies flip to kill the glare when glass dares to show them themselves. In the breath script on this side, the word don't rinked itself as if someone were breathing literacy. Don't. I slapped my palm against the mirror once, twice a third time, like a coin on a counter. Nickel knocks, he stopped with his fingers still in the air, listening to a room he couldn't hear. Supervisor, he said again, softer, my name. Followed, blessed and precise, the way a rope knows which waist to hold. Rule 12. I said to the door in front of my face, the hand through it, the lineup and its smirk. You don't answer voices that won't use your name. You do answer the ones that do. The seam eased a fraction. On the far tape line, the 10 figures rearranged by an inch, some bored calculation in their shoulders. The central Postino face only habit-rotated his card until the digit became a 5 again. 5 isn't only a number, it's the finger you point with. He pointed. The room obliged, edges tightening until this place and that place braided. Where are you? The lieutenant asked. The phrase scratched some wrong itch. The building loved that question, but he'd said my name first, so it carried a human. Wait. The viewing room door handle clicked. He was about to step into mapped interrogation B and find no supervisor and a bag on a table that had signed itself in. Sir, I called, trusting that mirror physics had a sense of humor for once. Keep 12 on. Do not cross the glass. He froze, eyes seeking mine, and finding only his own patient reflection. Copy, he said, with the same obedience I'd learned the hard way. His fingers drifted away from the switch. He set the hat on the credenza. Like a witness, see, we are still in a place that respects ordinary objects. Behind my shoulder, the plastic of 178A wrinkled again, as if something inside had turned its head to listen. The tape leash twitched, persistent, heel, then toe, then hill. It tried to teach me a gait that would carry me over the line in a figure eight until my memories walked themselves into a corral. I bent, reached, and laid the sleeved Polaroid over the tape like a paperweight. White skates looked up at me from 1990 with their neat laces and their chipped wheel. A picture of an anchor is still an anchor if you tell the ocean so. Stay, I told the leash. It did. Maybe the station likes being told what to do by someone who remembers when it almost killed them. The other hand, through the seam flexed, press, becoming pull. Cold went up my arm in a measured sleeve. The second mirror fogged at cheek height. Words wrote themselves backward so I could read them forward. Point if you recognize anyone, I refuse. I said to the ritual that had stolen years from more than me. I don't feed your act. The lineup dimmed as if a cloud crossed a painted sun. The central posture spread his empty hands to show me the coin and the space where the coin wasn't. He wanted the old scene. He wanted my finger. Buildings, like men, get nostalgic for their favorite crimes. New test, I said, and slid the thermal strip with my name on it out of my pocket. The paper was still warm, as if it remembered the printer. I pressed it into the seam next to our overlapping hands until it sank into the idea of the door like a card into the crack of a book. Recognize this. I told the room. Chain of custody, mine. The tick in the duct settled into a metronome. The seam cooled, less greedy. The other hand did not withdraw, but it stopped pulling, as if reading the ink that had printed faintly into its palm and thinking about it. In the viewing room reflection, the lieutenant lowered his hand and took out his notepad, the way a man does when he can't fix it, but he can name it. Naming has power. So do pens. He spoke into his radio, voice even. All units, be advised. B is occupied by unknown. Contain hallway. No one touches 12. Dispatch, continue recording. Copy, dispatch said. Sharp with relief, a small sound kissed the jam near my knee, the whisperall of the skate inching. Loyal wedge under a door that wanted to forget, hinges were promises. The leash of tape wriggled once more, and finding no purchase, went still like a sulking river. On the far tape line, the 9 figures not, counting the center lost interest first, their shoulders slackened into something that was almost human. The central posture remained, card lifted in a parody of help. He tapped it twice against his chest, an invitation to play by old rules. Point, choose, repeat. My finger twitched, in the old muscle memory, and I sneered at it the way you sneer at a traitor inside your own gate. Rule 13, I said. A door that asks you to accuse is just asking you to stay. In the reflection behind me, the lieutenant drew a small circle on his pad, his ritual, and then looked squarely at the glass as if daring it to be only a mirror. Say the word if you need me to break something, he said, and for a second, the building disliked him more than it disliked me. The fourth light in mapped B flickered. The breath digits trembled. The seam cooled another degree toward ordinary. Hold, I said. Let's make it come to us. The other hand flexed one. Last tug, a child's tug, almost petulant, then released, palm sliding off mine like a print coming clean. I stayed. The door stayed. The station, disappointed, adjusted its weight around us like a predator resettling on its rock when the deer leaves the clearing. Something new wrote itself on the second mirror. Low to the floor, where only someone standing where I stood could see it, for neat numerals, not 404, not 5, the last 4 of my badge, again precise as a key cut true. The building had learned my digits. It wanted to keep them. Not tonight, I told it, and pressed my marked palm flat to the glass until the ink line printed there to my horizon, on both sides. The tick of camera 12 agreed, steady as a clock that belonged to people, not rooms. Behind me, the lieutenant's breath-fogged mapped glass. He wrote with his finger where I couldn't see, slow and deliberate, backward so I could read it forward through my side. 3 words, "Do you need?" He didn't get to finish. The PA coughed, and a voice that wasn't dispatched and wasn't any of ours came through the old grill with wet wire patience, addressing the lieutenant by the wrong name and me by the wrong number. "Open," it said, sweet as a locksmith, "and let me show you what you've been trying to remember." The voice on the PA had the patient damp of wet wire. It called the lieutenant by the wrong name and me by the wrong number. Then cooed, "Open, and let me show you what you've been trying to remember." Rule 14. I told the seam, the mirror, the room that had learned to pronounce 404 in Frost. If a voice can't get your names right, it's fishing. Do not bait the hook. The lieutenant's reflection hovered in mapped be behind the glass, opposite me, hat off, notepad out. The posture of a man who writes the world back into a shape that can be testified to. He used my real name, deliberate as a lifeline. "Copy you on 12, he said, and didn't touch the switch. Bless him for that. Camera 12 ticked steady. A metronome nobody had the right to silence. The tape leash at my feet gave a polite tug. I put my weight on the sleeved Polaroid I'd laid over it. White skates, neat laces. The chipped wheel turned toward my chest like an eye that forgives. The little skate wedged in the jam chirped once, holding the door to this impossible room with the stubborn faith of a child who learned that stay can be a spell. "Open." The wrong voice. "Try it again, sweeter." "I'll sign for it." "That's new," I said. The hand through the seam was back, larger by a knuckle, heedless. Pressure, found pressure. Rule 15. If it wants in, make it sign first. I reached one-handed into my breast pocket and slid out a blank evidence sticker. The kind we burn through by the roll-logging pens and phones and the artifacts of bad decisions. I fed it edgewise into the seam until half the adhesive sheet lived on the other side and half on mine. "Chain of custody," I told the room. "Print your name." A beat like a held breath. Then the sticker twitched. Something pressed on. The far half, ink appeared in careful strokes, the way a child traces a parent's hand. 5. I peeled the sticker back. The signature broke where the seam had kissed it. Half a numeral on my side, half a cowardly curve on the other. "Rejected," I said, out loud, calm. "Numbers aren't names." The PA sighed in static. "Open," it coaxed, switching tactics. A second voice braided into it. A hospital-clean whisper that remembered orange peels and coloring inside the lines. "Don't cry," it said in a mother's cadence that wasn't my mother's. The hairs on my arms stood at attention anyway. Memory is a ventriloquist. You have to watch the lips. Rule 16, I answered. For me, as much as the building. If a room speaks in borrowed throats, don't answer in the language it stole. Behind me, mapped interrogation be answered. With the ordinary, chair feet, paper, the small honest cough of the lieutenant clearing a ghost out of his windpipe. He wrote on the glass, backward, so I could read it forward. Code. Good. The station has a daily duress challenge. 2 words on a whiteboard near the breakroom coffee maker, that only people who live here notice. Today's was a stupid pun about the softball team. I pressed my marked palm to the mirror and wrote it, in breath. Dust devils. The lieutenant nodded once, tight. He tapped his last 4 digits against the pane, then mine. 2 keys, checking their teeth. The wrong voice on the PA missed a step, catching itself on the 5 it loved. The bag labeled 178A sighed in plastic behind mapped glass. The cuff pushing a finger's worth under the seal, and then retreating, shy. In this room 404, the opposite mirror filmed with a small oval of fog at cheek height, and wrote, "Point, if you recognize anyone." It was tidier script now. Practiced. "No," I said again. New test. I held up the Polaroid square of 1990 with white skates centered and laces neat. In this light, the laces had arranged themselves into 404, slow as ivy. Do you recognize yourself? I asked it. On the far tape line, the 10 figures blurred, attention bending. The central posture, the coin flip hands, the smirk you can pick out of 1,000 faces, tilted his head, bored. He raised his card, not a number this time, but a quick sketch of a keyhole. The room loves doors more than names. It wanted the old, next move, my pointing finger, my rerun of their story. Rule 17, I said, steady. Do not rehearse the if-then they wrote for you. Write your own condition. I touched the seam. If you sign a name, then I open. If you don't, then you listen. The hand through the seam hesitated, the way a con does when the mark refuses. The script, the PA, lost its borrowed mother, and came back with its wet wire patience. Open, it sang. I'll show you where you left the rest. The room tried the brake light trick. My peripheral vision filled with red. The WD-40 can rolled against my ankle, the taste of coin on my tongue. The word that fits a throat like a ring. I told my body, a different verb. Stand, I said. Stay. The memory thinned, like breath blown off glass. The lieutenant's reflection hunched into the frame. He yanked the old intercom mic from its cradle-tired wire. Square mouth and spoke in a cadence you use for the dangerous mentally ill. Slow. Precise, offering choices you can live with. He said my name. He said his then. State your full name for the record. I smiled at the mirror's throat. The wrong voice screwed up its courage and lied. It said my badge digits again. It tried the lieutenant's first name and put it on the wrong man. The station chewed on the error like, Gristle, you can't, I told it. You can't say who you are because the last time you tried a name in this building, you lost it. For a heartbeat tooth, central posture's smirk faltered, and I saw the ordinary underneath, the neighbor camouflage, the directions. You could trust until you couldn't. On the opposite glass, new words traced themselves, lower, where knees bend keep camera dosi, the duct, ticked its consent. Tick, tick, tick alive. Copy, I said. The tape leash sulked. The sticker with the half-five stuck to my palm like a refused bargain. Then the room shifted its mean weight and showed me something almost clever. The breath digits fogged not 404 but 404, a time. The old clock over the door agreed its second hand jutted, as if someone tapped its crystal. Time is a door to the station meant to open me on a schedule I hadn't chosen. Rule 18, I said. Put your own time on it. I looked at the lieutenant through 2 panes and 1 idea of glass. At 0020, I told him, like we were planning a warrant service, we're going to inventory the door. He didn't ask what that meant. He wrote 020 on his pad, underlined it, and tapped the line twice. Copy, he said. We'll be with you. The PA hissed like a kettle left on a red coil. Open now. The wrong voice pleaded, the pleas hidden under polish. I'll take your statement. Sign, I said, and fed a second blank. Sticker through the seam. Full name. The hand through the seam pressed. Ink wrote itself out of thin air in a slow, reluctant script, not 5 letters. Are you? Then a stammer, as if the room gagged on what came next. It stopped. The sticker came back with a half-born name, familiar and hated better, I said, not letting my breath hitch. Finish it. The lights dimmed a fraction. The central posture on the tape line laughed without a sound. Shoulders, throat. The old leisure of a man who thinks rules of furniture. He lifted his card, flipped it to a blank side, and drew a door in one stroke, a rectangle, a knob, a lazy keyhole like a wink. He wanted me to want it. At 020, the clock's second hand hit the top and stuck like gum. I pressed my marked palm to the seam. The horizon I'd inked printing faintly onto the other hand again. I felt the pushback, stubborn. A copy that didn't know it was one. The small skate chirped and held. The sticker with the half name fluttered. In the HVAC, wanting to be a flag. Inventory, I said. Voice steady, as a man reading a list. Room 404, 1 door that isn't a door. 1 mirror that edits. 1 leash, 1 counterfeit voice, 1 hand without heat. 1 refusal to name itself. 1 survivor present. One lieutenant present, one camera live. The room hates being read like that. It prefers to be an ocean pretending to be a hallway. The PA coughed up its last trick, a child's whisper from a winter decade, small and brave and breaking my voice. Then, "I'll give you the pound," it said, the way I'd bargained through a trunk lid once. "Just let me go." My knee buckled. The seams surged, smelling like nickel and chalk, and a sentence that fits too close, "Not you." I told the whisper and felt my throat remember the right way to be a wall. "You did enough, I'll do the rest." On the opposite glass, 3 new words appeared, not breath, but the clean block of a label maker dragged across frost. "Keep the door." The knob in my palm turned not from my side. From deeper in 404, something else had decided to join us. The knob in my palm turned from the far side cold, moving through metal like a decision. The small skate wedged in the jam, chirped its chipped wheel and held behind mapped glass. The lieutenant's reflection stilled. His hat sat on the credenza like a witness who refused to be moved. "Supervisor," he said into the intercom. "Careful with my name, advise." Rule 19, I told the seam, the mirror, the room that had learned to wear 404 like cologne. When something wants in without a name, add witnesses until it learns one. "Copy," the lieutenant said, not asking for the part of the sentence that sounded like superstition. He lifted his notepad, pen poised, the way men make rooms. "Behave by writing what they do." The door pressed again. Cold threaded my bones. From deeper in 404 came the faintest rattle of a can rolling against ribbed carpet. Memories, WD-40. The smell of nickel and clean metal, the taste of coin under the tongue. The PA hummed, "Wet. Wire happy. Open." The wrong voice, coaxed, 2 tones braided. A neighbor's easy laugh above a mother's borrowed calm. "I'll take your statement." "Sign," I said, and slid a new evidence sticker edgewise through the seam. Full name. The hand on the other side, larger by a knuckle, hitless hesitated. Pressure met pressure. The sticker quivered, adhesive gripping air. Ink wrote itself slowly on the far half, the way a child traces a parent's signature, RUS, and then a stutter, as if the room gagged on the rest. The line jerked, smeared, stopped. "Rejected," I said calmly, "because you can starve a magic trick with boredom. Incomplete names don't cross chains." Behind me, Mapped B's bagged sweatshirt sighed in plastic, the cuff nosed under its own seal, and retreated, listening. Camera 12 ticked steady. The duct's small metronome judging us all. On the opposite mirror, the one inside 404 breath wrote a tidy instruction at cheek, height, point, if you recognize anyone. The 10 figures on the tape line tipped their heads. That one practice degree, the central posture with the coin flip hands. The smirk you can pick out of 1,000 faces, patience like a sport. "No," I told the glass. "New test." I lifted the sleeved Polaroid. In this light, the skate's laces arranged themselves into 404, slow as ivy finding brick. I held the square to the seam until the edges kissed it. "Inventory," I said, voice level, as a list. 1 door, that isn't a door. 1 mirror, that edits. 1 leash. 1 counterfeit voice. 1 hand without heat. 1 attempt at a name. 1 surviving witness. 1 lieutenant. 1 camera, alive. Rooms hate being read like invoices. The PA coughed. The wrong voice shed its neighbor octave and tried on a detective's cadence. "Take your time." Beneath it crawled the trunk sentence, low and private, "Shut up, or else." The building braided them, hoping my body would remember which not. To offer its throat to stand, I told my bones, "Stay." The verbs obeyed. That's the trick. You give your body new orders until it forgets the old ones worked. The knob turned a hair, not enough to break the skate's wedge, enough to be a threat. I pressed my marked palm harder to the seamed my inked horizon printing, faintly onto the other hand again. "Rule 20, I said. "Names aren't spoken here, names are written. Write yours or the door stays ours." Behind mapped glass, the lieutenant took the hint. He put his mouth to the intercom and read like a man calling a warrant over a front step. For the record, this is Harbour District Station. Interrogation B, Camera 12 live. Time 0020. Present Lieutenant. His name, Supervisor. My name, unknown party requesting entry through room for chain of custody initiated. Sign your full legal name. The room listened, offended. The central posture on the far tape line lifted his number card and flipped it to a blank side. With a single lazy stroke he drew a door, rectangle, knob, keyhole. Like a wink, he wanted me to want it. He pointed the drawn knob at me as if the paper could turn. Time. Dispatch said over the PA, her true voice, every syllable honest. 005 Copy, I said, and breathed like the hallway does when it chooses not to be an ocean. On inventory, I fed the sticker deeper through the seam past the smear of RUS and held it there like a kite. String, steady. Finish it, I said to the hand, without heat. Then we'll decide who opens what. The ink stuttered. A letter formed, reluctant S. Another E. The line shook, as if the pen on the far side was also a vein. L. The last letters came out crowded, mean with effort. The sticker sagged heavy with a full word that the room had no business remembering. The lieutenant's pen scratched it down on his pad without looking away from the glass. For the record, he said, voice level and ordinary as a sidewalk, signature captured. The duct ticked like applause that didn't want to be caught doing it. The leash of tape at my feet gave a final, sulky wriggle and lay still, dark. Line on tile. The 10 figures on the far tape faded at the edges, 9 first shoulders loosening into almost human until only the central posture remained. Card hand empty now, smirk working to remember how to be a face, chain of custody. I repeated, sealing the moment with a sentence that saves and sentences. Door is ours. The knob cooled under my palm, not polite, defeated. The seam warmed a fraction, enough that skin didn't stick. The small skate held the jam like victory can be small and still count. On the opposite mirror, breath wrote. 3 new words, low, where knees bend, keep the door, the building can be taught. Copy, I said. We keep it. Behind mapped glass, the lieutenant nodded once. Then did something I still bless him for. He stepped out of frame. And when he stepped back, he held the big red evidence seals we use when a safe gets cracked, or a car door won't stop telling its story. He pressed one against mapped glass high, dead center so. His reflection looked like it wore a bandage. He wrote across it in block print. 404, HELD. Then, slower, my name. Witnesses, I told the room. Now you have 2. The PA tried one last key. It found my 7-year-old voice and threaded it through a winter coil. I'll give you the pound, just let me go. A part of me broke like ice in a sink, and refroze into something that could be carried. Not you, I said, to that bright, brave child. You already did the hardest part. Something shifted inside 404, a weight stepping off a floorboard. An old animal taking inventory of the trap it just learned it was in. The drawn door on the central figures card blurred, rain on pencil. He lifted his empty hands, turned them. To show both sides, the trick was over. He had no coin. His smirk became a line a man wears when he's walked the long way around to a room he can't leave. Supervisor, the lieutenant said softly, like a door that still wants to be your friend, on your go. Rule 21, I told the seam, and my voice didn't shake. Pain that learns a name loses its job. I pressed my palm to the glass one last time and felt the other hand mirror me because it didn't yet know how not to. I slid the signed sticker back fully onto our side and smoothed it against the pane above the skate. A label in the universal language of evidence, name, underscore. The line didn't stay blank. Ink bled up through adhesive from no pen at all, the same reluctant letters. Each one writing itself because the room had admitted them once and couldn't pretend it hadn't. USSEL, Lee, didn't read it out loud. The building had. The lieutenant had. Dispatch had. Camera 12 had been breathing the whole time. That was enough witnesses to move a world an inch. The knob in my palm stopped turning. On the opposite mirror, the breath digits 404 thinned to a harmless fog and faded. The line on the floor that wanted to be a leash softened into a scuff that would mop up. The 10 figures were gone. Only a man-sized lack of light stood at the center stripe, the absence left behind when an outline decides to take a knee, a shape like a room without furniture. The old smirk cracked and didn't heal. Keep the door, the frost label ordered once more, faint. Now we will, I said, and the station, disappointed and relieved, exhaled through every duct in. A low tired him. The ink horizon across my palm dried to a harmless line. Camera 12 ticked steady as a clock that belongs to people. Behind mapped glass, the lieutenant raised 2 fingers, the signal we use when we're about to make something official. On my mark, he said, and for the first time all night, the building and the men inside it wanted the same thing. 3, he said. 2, dispatch counted. A smile in her voice like sunlight behind weather. 1, I said, and felt the last of the seam loosen under my hand, like a trick giving up its favorite lie. 3, the lieutenant said. 2, dispatch counted, sunlight tucked behind weather. 1, I said, and the seam under my palm gave up its favorite lie. The pressure that had matched my hand larger by a knuckle. Hitler slid away with the reluctant courtesy of a trespasser backing out of a photograph. The knob stilled. The small skate at the jam chirped once, triumphant and tired. A breath label ghosted low on the second mirror. Barely there, keep the door. Then it thinned to nothing the way fog does when a room decides to be ordinary again. On me, the lieutenant said, through the intercom, voice steady now that the building and the men inside it wanted the same thing. He stepped into mapped interrogation, by only mapped B, thank God, and crossed to the glass. Up close he looked human in ways I'd forgotten to notice. Crow's feet that belonged to jokes. A scuff on the toe of a shoe from catching a door with work still in it. He palmed the big red evidence seal, tore off the backing, and pressed it dead center on the pane at my height. The adhesive whispered. He wrote across it in block print, 404 HELD. Then, slower, my name. Then his. Witnesses, I told the room that had been pretending to be another room. Chain of custody stands. Camera 12 ticked like a heartbeat that had decided it belonged to people. The bag marked 178A exhaled its last plastic sigh and went still. In 404's mirror the one-eyed stepped through without stepping the tape line sat as just tape again. A scuffy mop, no heads tilted, no posture weighted. I pulled the signed sticker back fully onto our side and smoothed it under the red seal. A second bandage, name, RUSSELL. I didn't read it out loud. Buildings hear their own confessions. Status, the lieutenant asked, not taking his eyes off me in the glass. Door, cool, I said. Pressure withdrawn. Camera 12 stable. Procedure is a kind of prayer, the room respects it. Rule 22, I added, more for Harbor District than for him. Seal. The story before it learns another way to tell itself. He nodded like we'd rehearsed it. Dispatch, he said. Note 404 held with dual seals. Begin incident record. Tag this as case 178 addendum. Copy, she said. All business. But there was a human smile in the way the word landed. The lieutenant set his palm against the red seal, then flattened his other hand against the glass beside mine like a second brace. Supervisor, he said softly, and used my name again. On your go. I breathed the station back into its bones. The ink horizon I'd drawn across my palm had dried to a harmless line. I lifted my hand, slow. The glass did not lean. It only reflected. The seam that had been a thought became a memory. The small skate stayed in place because the door doesn't trust you if you don't show it. You trust something. Go, I said. He stepped back. I bent and collected what I had brought. The sleeved Polaroid white skates. Obedient laces. The thermal strips with their times and access granted. The half-name sticker. The receipt print with signature. 5. The little skate with its chipped wheel, colder than it should be, and warm where my hand remembered it. I logged each out loud, as if listing saints. The room heard and chose not to argue. We walked the hallway together, Lieutenant and me, and tonight the corridor didn't lengthen to make me prove I belonged. The fourth fluorescent hour bad bulb flickered, then steadied, as if embarrassed. To have been dramatic, the posters stared with their ordinary faces, missing flyers, softball team, a PTA bake sale stapled over a retirement party. The glass in the frames showed me back like a person you could sit next to in a breakroom.at records. The badge reader blinked green without a personality. Inside, the shelves waited like a choir that knows all the verses. The lieutenant took the tote. I logged the time. We slid 178A into its cube and ran a fresh seal across the wire. He added a blue Sharpie line that read simply, "Do not transfer without our names." It felt like closing a book. "Camera 12 stays up," he said, "more to the building than to me, all night." "Copy," dispatch said, cheerful again. And I liked her for not pretending she hadn't been afraid. We rode the elevator up in silence. The bell dinged like small mercy. At the bullpen, the lieutenant angled me toward a desk no one uses after midnight except ghosts and paperwork. He poured coffee that tasted like floor wax and kindness. My hands shook only when the mug was safe. "On the blotter report," he said, and sat across from me so we could invent a language between the supernatural and an audit trail. We wrote for an hour. We crafted facts like beams and ran the statute through them. We left poetry for the glass. We kept the important nouns: mirror, pressure, unauthorized sign-out, signature obtained under duress, unknown party inscribed letters, RUSSLL. Camera 12 maintained. Room number presented as 404, though no such room exists in floor plan. He wrote witness supervisor experiencing flashback triggers. Remained oriented by 4 and glanced up to make sure I didn't mind being witnessed that way. I didn't. Being seen is a kind of door that opens out. Rule 23. I said, when the coffee ran out, do not leave a night like this without choosing what to do in the morning. "What do you do?" he asked. "Inventory," I said. "You take the stories out, lay them flat, keep what happened, refuse what didn't." The lieutenant smiled with his eyes. "The way men do when the world is heavy and you carry the same end." He walked me to the steps that lead outside as the first rumor of dawn made the glass above the vestibule indifferent to its own reflection. Nightbirds traded the hour back to the morning ones. A cleaning crew came in humming and didn't ask why the hallway smelled faintly of nickel and winter oranges. At the threshold, I stopped. The door's push bar felt like truth, cold, honest, vowed. "Keep the seal," I told him. "We keep it," he said. "Camera 12 stays up until shift change. After that, we'll find a way to keep it up longer." He didn't ask me if I was okay. I'm not, and I am, and the answer changes with the weather. He asked the question you ask a person you trust to inventory themselves. "Do you need me to call anyone?" "I'm going to buy a new pair of skates," I said, and surprised us both. "Not to wear. To put on my desk, so next time a door offers me a leash, I remember who taught me the word stay." He nodded, like that was policy. We laughed once, ragged and grateful. The way people do at the end of something that didn't want to end. Outside, the air had a blade in it, but not a bite. Harbor Street yawned awake. A bus breathing diesel prayers, a bakery arguing with its first batch, a gull laughing at a newspaper stand. I walked into it. Not to outrun the station, but to give it a chance to learn a new rule without me watching. Sun finds the places buildings don't want you to notice. By noon, 404 will be a rumor. Only the old duct remembers. By night, it will test the seal again. It will learn that being named takes teeth out of a trick. Asterisk chain of custody doesn't just keep objects, it keeps us. Tonight, we kept the door, we kept the camera, we kept the part of the story that used to rehearse itself without our permission. And we wrote a different ending on a line that once only asked for a number. I still work nights at Harbor District Station. The hallways still smell like old coffee and wet wool. But when I pass interrogation B now, I see a red bandage with 2 names on it and a small ink horizon printed twice my palm. The echo of my palm. I listen for camera 12. I hear it tick, steady and ordinary. Like a clock that belongs to people, when the station laughs after midnight hand, it will I won't think it's laughing at me. It's laughing with the thing that remembers what we pointed at, and the fact that this time, we pointed at the door and kept it. If you made it this far into the dark with me, you're my kind of witness. Keep the door with us.